Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm your host, Shana James. I'm so excited to be here today with Richard Hanbury. Richard, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
Today, we're going to talk about the topic of pain and enduring pain and finding hope, or, like the reality. Richard's been through a journey of intense amounts of pain. Mostly, I was going to say it started physically, but I'm sure then, there was the emotional pain as well. And so I really wanted to have a conversation with you about how you got through it and, what kept you going. And I think about the book, A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and how, gut-wrenching and moving that is on so many levels, that he was a Holocaust survivor and how he kept himself going. And, you were given only a couple years to live because of the intensity of your nerve pain. So maybe can you take us back to some of those first moments and share a little bit about what was going on so men have a context for this?
Certainly, yeah. So I had a pretty traditional English private school background with a messy parental divorce and too much alcohol drunk, a lot too much alcohol drunk by the age of 19. But generally speaking, life overall pretty good. And then I was driving down. I ended up in Yemen on holiday. I was living in Egypt at the time as part of my undergraduate degree, learning Arabic.
I remember you were studying Arabic. Yeah.
Yeah. And no one in Egypt wanted to help us learn Arabic. They all wanted to learn English better because tourism was such an important part of the economy.
Right.
So we thought, hey, let's go to somewhere where there is nobody wanting to speak English so we can learn some Arabic. So we went off to the Yemen, and I was driving a Jeep down the road near the capital, Sana'a, when I had a split-second choice between a head-on collision next to a petrol truck or to go off a bridge. And in that split second, I had an image of my dad wandering around the country trying to find remains.
Wow.
And I figured we were dead either way, but if I went off the bridge, there would be remains to find. And if I hit next to the petrol truck, there wouldn't be anything left to find.
Yeah.
So off the bridge, 60 foot down, and basically my passenger had a lot more broken bones than me, but nothing is permanent.
Yeah.
But I had a spinal cord injury and traumatic brain injury and an aortic tear. So I bled internally for 3 days, lost 40% of my body weight by the time they got me back to the UK. Then was clinically dead for 8 minutes, back from that, into a coma, back from that. And a good portion of the clinically dead bit was kind of a get out of jail free card in many ways, because I experienced extraordinary levels of comfort and bliss during that 8 minutes.
You did. You remember it?
Oh yeah. I remember every split second. I was wired up to an EEG and an EKG and 10 other pieces of equipment at the same time.
Wow.
And I had no brain activity while this consciousness was going on.
But you were conscious. Could you see yourself, or was it more like you just...
I was above my body for about 15, 20 seconds before I was in whatever the other place
bliss
was.
State, right.
Yeah. I think people there are a category of people who have the same kind of experience as me, where it feels more like a holding pattern.
Yeah.
And after about 7.5 minutes, I thought, hang on a minute, shit, I felt this before. It was when I was last dead. I'm not ready to be dead yet. I got a job to do. I'm going back.
Wow.
So I chose to be alive, either in some kind of reality or or delusion, depending on which side of the neurological debate you are.
Yes.
But either a very strong delusion or a very strong experience of choosing to be alive. And that was definitely a very good start. And then the sort of chronic pain and how bad the pain was became obvious over the next few months.
Right. And that, I don't want to skip over that part because you had nerve damage. You said that was, so extraordinary that, right. Like can you describe that a little bit?
Yeah. So Christopher Reeves is the best known example of someone who had a higher neck injury, back injury, because mine was back and his was neck, but same level of pain. And essentially when you're over a certain threshold of pain, you're permanently in fight flight. So your body is never able to repair anything. Yeah. And with my level of spinal cord injury, it's typically pressure injuries that are the thing that kill you. And with Christopher Reeve, it's either lung or pressure injuries. And his was pressure injuries was the final thing. And he died in just under 6 years. And the reality is I wouldn't have lasted anywhere close to that long because I didn't have any quality of life. I would have said goodbye to my parents and then checked out. There's just no way. Yeah. But in a hospital, even back then, they were teaching meditation as essentially suicide mitigation prevention. Right. And it's a really dumb idea to learn to meditate. Yeah. I
remember reading an article where you were like, well, then you actually have to sit and feel the pain as opposed to getting away from it.
Yeah. When you're in episodic pain and your pain is sometimes less and sometimes more, and the same with anxiety. Mm-hmm. If you're in chronic anxiety, it's a really bad idea to learn to meditate. But if you get breaks when you're in better shape and you use those breaks to learn those skills,
then you can bring them back.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah. It's not a real solution, but it helps. It's useful. But when you're in constant chronic anxiety, it's a bad idea. You just become more present moment aware of how much pain you're in. Wow. The number of times that people talk to me about, being more in my body, when back then it was like, not really sure I want to do that much. And then my big aha moment on the device came watching a movie. It was Hudson Hawk. Bruce Willis did literally save my life with that crappy movie.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it was because it was really good, funny, fast-paced set pieces. Yeah. And then really bad dialogue and script in between. Or not bad, but just weird. Yeah. So it put me in and out of that flow state the whole way through the movie. And at the end of the movie, I thought, hang on a minute, that changed my pain levels more than morphine. And the bits of the movie that made me feel less pain made me feel like I used to when I was skiing.
Wow.
And I was like,
when you were skiing, like in a kind of flow state.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now that's exactly what we would call it. We'd call it a flow state. Back then, some of those, this was 1992 into 93. So some of those terms had been coined, but they weren't common knowledge. And then my next thought was, so if I had meditated all of my life by now, I would be able to switch in and out of these states at will. Right. And that'd be useful. And then the thought was, okay, well, if I had meditated all my life, how would that have changed my brain? And it turns out that meditation really gives you two quite different and discrete categories of benefit. One is wisdom, and you can't shortcut that. You can't shortcut.
How do you define wisdom? What aspects of wisdom?
Well, if you're sitting in your own psychological crap and figuring your crap out bit by bit, that's the wisdom that you can't shortcut. That you can't do it in less hours.
Get there, right?
Yeah,
you have to actually go through the terrain and be able to witness it and discover along the way the lessons learned. That kind of wisdom.
Yeah, I think you can shortcut that obviously with therapy if you're doing therapy and meditation. Right. I also did a really interesting meditation, an MDMA assisted meditation thing, which was an 8-hour process. And in that 8 hours, I think I probably did about as much work as about
years of therapy.
At least 6 months. Yeah. At least 6 months, and probably more.
That's really powerful.
There are tricks to sort of but just by meditating, that bit you can't fix. Yeah. But the other benefit you get from meditating is hardware changes in the brain and how your brain's wired and the frequency patterns your brain produces. And turns out you can absolutely shortcut that bit. And that's
what you've created, right? As a, what do you call it? A product, I would say, but it's like a device, right? To actually help people.
I have one right here.
Oh, this is exciting.
This is the latest version. This is the version that is going through an FDA pivotal trial at the moment. Yeah. And basically, you're putting on with eyes closed. Mm-hmm. You're seeing pulses of light through closed eyes and hearing sound through headphones. Yep. And those pulses of light and sound are putting your brain into specific frequency patterns.
Amazing.
So if you go into a nightclub, you're getting strobed by bright lights and music at particular frequencies, and that's getting you into a particular state.
Yeah.
This is just a medical version of that.
Wow.
Essentially.
Okay. So I want to ask you questions about that, but I want to go back also before we do that of, in the time where you had not created this device and you had this insight, this aha, okay, pain can change, not just, not in the ways that we have thought, right? But there's something else going on here. Is that part of what kept you going and kept you alive? Or how did you stay in that, sense of hope or possibility?
If I'd left hospital without having watched that movie and having had that aha moment, I realistically would have checked out not long after leaving. It was there is a way out of this. There is a route I didn't believe that I could fix it.
Yeah.
But I totally believed it was possible to find some relief.
Yeah.
And that was enough. And
that gave you a window into, right. Okay. Something else is possible here.
And aside from the pain stuff, there was something else someone told me in hospital, which so far in my experience has always been true with everyone I've ever told it to, which is there's a 2-year rule to any kind of grief. And that 2-year rule says, if you have something go wrong or you lose something, wife, marriage, job, physical disability, whatever it is, wherever you are at 2 years after that event, you always get a bump. You always get an improvement. Now, you could be doing really badly and that be a small bump, but you're still going to notice it. Or you can be doing really well and get a bump. But everyone gets it's a rule. Everyone gets an improvement at 2 years.
Interesting.
And when someone told me this, I was like, oh, I've been in the hospital for a year, so that's great. I get my bump in a year. And they were like, no. You get your bump when you're back to life for 2 years.
Okay.
And the reason why is it's because the first holiday, the first birthday, the first Valentine's Day, all of those things, the first time round, really hard.
Really hard.
Second time round is a lot easier. Mm-hmm. And the third time round, you're like, oh, I've done this twice already. Yeah. And I didn't believe it at the time, but I wrote it in my diary. And then exactly 2 years to the month after I left hospital, I was like, things feel a lot easier. I don't know why. And then I remember this person saying it. I looked back to when they said it. And then, but that I think is always true. So, and I think that helps. You basically tell anybody, whatever position they're in, you're like, you are going to get an improvement. Don't know how big it is, and I don't know where you will be, what your baseline will be that you get that improvement
but something's coming. Yeah. So for men who, either are experiencing intense pain, whether it's physical or emotional, and maybe they're not yet back into life, or they're starting to get back into life, right? That they know in a couple of years that there is going to be some improvement, and that's a long time to wait. So I'm curious, what else helped you through that time?
Journaling is really key because it helps you separate out the physical from the emotional from the situational.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to intellectually understand, oh, I'm in pain and therefore it's hitting my mood. It took me 3 months of writing a diary every single day and writing a happiness score and a painkiller score every single, and that happiness score is literally like, okay, this feels like it's a 6 out of 10 day or a 7 out of 10 day or a 3 out of 10 day.
Yeah.
And the painkiller score of how many painkillers I was taking. And it took 3 months of seeing those figures every single day to go, oh, okay, it's actually nothing in my external environment that's changing my mood. It's all internal.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And that's the same whether it's a psychological stress or a physiological stress, because inside your brain, the brain doesn't differentiate between psychological and physiological strain and pain. Right. It is exactly the same chemical pathways and electrical pathways that are being triggered. So it doesn't matter whether you're in psychological pain or physical pain. They work the same way. They are always dehydrating. They always chew up sugar. And then a lot of people's alcoholism comes from a sugar addiction because of the impact of pain requiring extra sugar, and you getting a hit from you eat your sugar and therefore you feel better.
Wow.
So, that then does feed into some of America's large obesity problems. But all those patterns and things are linked. And the big thing with me was, okay, journaling every single day and putting a number on it and then going, okay, so all this external shit in my world hasn't changed from yesterday to today.
Yeah.
And yesterday I was at a 6 out of 10 and now I'm at a 3. And the only thing that's different is that I'm in more physical pain.
More pain. So then I imagine a man listening who's like, yeah, so it is all internal. And how does that help me? Right. I mean, you and I both know, right? We've been around, personal growth and coaching and therapy and all those things. And that, there are ways to work with the internal pain, but I'm wondering, what did it do for you to see, oh, this is all internal. It doesn't have to do with the outside.
I think one of the most important things it did was go, okay, well, then how do I change my internal?
Yeah.
And I mean, right now I get coaching help from two different people on two very different areas.
Yeah.
And in terms of improvement of my quality of life and my ability to do my job and everything else, both incredibly important. There's a degree to which you can do some things yourself. And there are other times when you just need an external perspective. And the more you get an external perspective saying the same thing every single time. One of my two coach people is essentially a witch.
A witch,
and every
did you
time,
say?
Yeah.
I love it.
Basically, her predictive ability is really scary.
Yeah.
She goes, oh, well, this is how things are going to pan out in your personal life. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, that's never going to happen. That's, the other party is never going to agree to that. And then 2 weeks later, it's like happening faster than she said. I'm like, shit.
Wow.
And so, everyone needs that kind of cheerleading.
Cheerleading, support, guidance, belief in you, or, just like not having to hold it alone.
Yeah. And as guys, I think within relationships, we have if the other person is relying on us to be strong.
Yes.
It's like great. That might be how the dynamic is.
Yeah.
But that doesn't help you figure any of this stuff out.
No, right? You've got to have a place. Else. Yeah. You can't. I feel really strongly that, you can be strong and you can be the rock for someone, but you can't hold that role forever for your whole life, right? You've got to also have support, and whether it's community or coaching or therapy, like there's got to be somewhere where you can vent and you can vision and you can see what's possible and you can be held to, I was going to say higher, but I don't want to say higher. It's more like that you actually get to be you, and you get to be, you get to receive.
Yeah. And I would say so I definitely made a lot of mistakes about believing there were silver bullets. So specifically on the pain side, it was chasing one solution after another solution after another solution. And it's never true. And I think this is the same psychologically as well. It's a question of toolkits. And it's a question of, okay, well, this thing over here helps me in this way. Uh-huh. How does that fit with this thing over here that helped me this little bit over here? Yeah. And you just literally bit by bit assemble the toolkit, all the people, support. Yeah, it's not support or coaching or therapy. It's do all of it.
All of it.
It's just.
I mean, I remember when I was going through divorce, having, I had someone I went to for acupuncture. I had a business coach. I had a relationship, or, I had therapy. I mean, God, I had a spiritual person, and thankfully I was, able, and I had the resources, and those people are in my community and my networks. But man, so many people, especially men, try to go it alone and think like, well, it means something about me, my masculinity, if I can't do this on my own.
Yeah. And it's very easy to get singular focused. And just recently, so the nerve damage problem, the original prototype of advice completely fixed in 3 months, and that never came back. I
completely fixed your pain for 3 months?
Completely fixed it for life. The nerve damage pain.
Wow.
Gone, never came back. And that was because the brain produced enough neuroplasticity that it could figure out how to wire around the problem.
Wow. Okay. So for men who don't know or can't see, you're in a wheelchair, right?
Yeah.
And so you have the upper part of your body. You can use your arms, torso, neck, head, but not your legs.
That's right. And so the pain that I originally had was very like phantom limb pain.
Yeah.
So you don't actually have a pain signal. You have a corrupted data stream.
Yes.
And the brain, if you generate enough neuroplasticity, the brain can figure out how to solve that problem.
Wow.
I had 10 years of really bad neck pain on top of that.
Yeah.
Turns out that actually ibuprofen was one of the things that was keeping me in pain. Ibuprofen is evil. People should not be taking it.
Wow.
I discovered because it damaged the lining of my stomach. So I was forced to stop taking it. And then with a couple of days, a couple of other things just started to improve quite quickly.
Oh my God.
And I was like, and then I read a book saying, the book was one I picked up at an airport, which was something like stupid myths that athletes follow. It was called something like that.
Yeah.
And basically in there, they had the research that showed that ibuprofen damages muscle, cartilage, and bone repair. So if you go and do physio to improve something that's hurting,
Yeah.
And you then take ibuprofen, you undo the damage, you undo the work that you've just done. Acetaminophen doesn't do that.
There's so many things like that I just, that blow me away, around, I've had all kinds of digestion problems and things where the Western, medicine has a solution that actually is kind of the anti-solution. And then actually learning more about Ayurveda or ancient techniques or, Chinese, like all those things, and just realizing, oh my God, there's a lot of backwards information.
I had a flare up in my neck pain issues because of stress, work, relationship stuff, and the wheelchair cushion that I'm sitting on developing a slow puncture. So it was changing my posture every day continuously, and I couldn't get a replacement and all this sort of stuff. And it took my coach person saying, okay, when we get off this call, I'm expecting a text message from you within the hour confirming that you booked an acupuncture appointment. And after I did it, I was like, oh, wow. Why on earth?
Why did I wait?
It was a tool in the toolkit that was awesome before. It was like, why didn't I do that?
Why didn't you? Do you have a sense of that?
I think us men have a tendency to get tunnel vision on what is the particular problem in front of me and what am I going to go after. And as a CEO, I started looking at 90-day goals. Right? What are my goals for 90 days? And as a CEO, none of the important milestones in the company are actually on my plate. I have to support everyone on everyone's goals.
Yes.
But I can't directly impact any of them. And so I was like, okay, well, what can I directly impact? What should be my 90-day goals?
Yeah.
And I actually wear one of these, which for those who can't see is a Whoop.
A Whoop.
Which measures how well you recover and how well you sleep, as well as how much exercise you're doing during the day.
Interesting.
So, for example, they've got great data on, which vaccine had more impact on slowing down people's recovery post-vaccine and all this kind of stuff.
Wow.
But individually, you wake up in the morning and it will tell you how much you can push that day based on how well you've recovered from the previous day.
Oh, wow.
And it gives you a heart rate variability measure. And average for my age is actually 40. A heart rate variability of it's milliseconds. And heart rate variability is to do with the tiny changes between every single heartbeat.
Yeah.
Essentially, the more changes you have, the healthier you are and the longer you're going to live. It's also a very good metric for mental health. So the higher that is, the higher physically and mentally, the better off you are.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, my 90-day challenge is getting to the average for my age because I'm a long way below.
Yes.
And that started me going, okay, well, I need to take care of what can I take care of myself more physically.
I love that, right? Like taking care of your company and your work and your business and more people being out of pain in the world, you actually had to come back and take care of your own self physically and emotionally and spiritually.
Yeah. And that is our own physical health is kind of the only thing that is in our control. Without anybody else having a say in it. You get to decide what time you're going to bed on average. I mean, maybe, some nights you have a kid that's going to keep you up or whatever, but on average, you have control of when you go to sleep. Yeah. You have control of, you might not have control of when you get up, but you have control of when you go to sleep. Therefore, how many hours you have. Yes. You have control of whether you watch any TV right before you go to bed or you're reading a book, reading off a tablet, what you drink. Like alcohol trashes my heart rate variability.
Yeah.
When my neck pain got really bad, I had one opioid pill because I couldn't break the cycle. And my device is really good on anything acute muscular pain where you've got a muscle in spasm.
Yeah.
The device won't get that to unwind. It'll help a bit, but it doesn't. And so I hit that with one opioid pill and it trashed my heart rate variability for that night. Wow. So everything else in my health and wellness dropped because of one pill.
Wow.
And that was like, okay.
Oh my God. To be able to track that is incredible. I've had a Fitbit for a while, but it sounds like the Whoop actually tracks way more.
Yeah, the Whoop is a bit more expensive. The other one that is similar quality of data is the Oura Ring.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so Fitbit is kind of basic level stuff that is good, actionable stuff. And then Whoop and Oura Ring are at the sort of the next level up.
Next level.
In terms of like data that you can use to help figure out. And then I think sort of like, anybody in any kind of trouble or pain, physical or mental,
it's worth it.
Science is the way through.
Yeah.
Measuring every day, everything, and noting what improves and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And then assembling your brain trust of people that are helping you, your physical stuff that you're doing every day that's supporting you. Because when you're in pain, physical and emotional, junk food is a really easy way of getting a very quick fix.
Right. However, then that'll
lasts
throw
about
you
2 hours, and then you pay for it for the rest. And most people are aware in that 24-hour period.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a little bump, and now I'm feeling crap again.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being an inspiration. And, we met, I think we said like 13 or 15 years ago. And I remember I feel so proud of you because I remember you coming in with these machines and, doing the biofeedback or neurofeedback. And, you were still figuring this out. And it's amazing that you now have a device that is going through FDA trials, right? That's helping people not be in pain and that you've, solved your own pain problem or a lot of the pain that you've been through. So I feel totally amazed and inspired. And, for men listening, I think it gives a sense of hope and that there are, things possible. Most of us never experience the amount of physical pain and emotional pain as a result that you have been through. So thank you for being an inspiration. And I'm wondering if we could wrap up with, what are some of the things that you still struggle with or that you're still going through? Because I think, again, that, it humanizes, right? You've come all this way and you're also still human. And for men to hear that part feels important as well.
General levels of exhaustion, definitely.
As a dad, as a company owner, Yeah.
And again, the sort of deprioritizing of the self-care, which, it makes sense why we do it in the very short term.
Yeah.
And then the short term becomes a long term, and then it smacks you in the face for because you then can't do even the basic things that you were doing because you're now sick. So that kind of continual focus on sharpening the blade. I can't remember who said it, but I think it was a previous American president who said there was a quote, something like, if I had 12 hours to cut down a tree, I'd spend 11 hours sharpening the blade.
Wow.
And that, remembering that is kind of, I still struggle with that. And I still have to, I need other people to just tell me, hey, you're going to book that in the next hour. And then you're going to text me and tell me you booked it. Because there's always, whatever jam you're in, there's always a way out.
Yeah.
And usually that way out has to do with incremental time and incremental effort and the tunnel vision on what's immediately in front and what's immediately urgent.
Yeah.
It usually crowds out the important. And I still do that and still need to be
reminded and
course corrected, reminded.
Yes, course corrected. Yeah. Thank you. Is there anything you want to leave men with?
I guess I really strongly say to everyone going through any amount of difficulty, journal and put numbers on each day and put the thing that made the day a good day or a bad day, just like because it helps you see what's important in your life and it helps you see what actually gives you pleasure and meaning. And no one else can do that for you. I mean, I literally now, this is my diary.
Yeah.
And I always start the first line with, I am grateful for.
Uh-huh.
And that was only something I started about a year ago. But what it does is it makes it much easier to get into the discipline of writing it every day, because when it comes to that end of the day, you just start thinking, okay, what is it that I'm most grateful for this day? What happened this day? What did someone do? And it gets you focused on that one or two things that actually made the day more livable when things are tough. So that's
amazing.
Journal and start your journal with, I am grateful for, and it could be, you could be feeling shit all day and someone made you feel slightly less shit. That's still what goes in there. I am grateful for.
No matter how shitty things have felt that day, there is something to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Thank you. And where can people find you and what do you need? Like when you're, I know you're in FDA trials, is it, can people buy the device? Who needs the device? Are you raising money? Like, how can we also support you?
Well, thank you. That's very kind. So we are on market as a wellness device. It's the same device that is in clinical trials. We are about to launch a 1,000-person fibromyalgia study in about 6 weeks' time. And fibromyalgia is 85% women. Almost everyone who has fibromyalgia has trauma. It's PTSD or undiagnosed PTSD.
And I read an article that you were saying people with fibromyalgia had so far like a 45% pain decrease. Is that right?
Quality of life.
Quality of life.
Improvement,
Improvement,
yeah.
Okay.
Because pain, what happens is you get people to do more stuff. You enable people to do more stuff, they will immediately go and do more stuff.
Yeah.
And so pain levels initially sometimes rise, but they're happier anyway because they're doing more stuff. So pain is not a good measure, but quality of life covers pain, anxiety, fatigue, and depression. So overall, is your life better or worse?
Awesome.
So getting the word out on that fibromyalgia study for people who are going with fibromyalgia. Most of the guys with fibromyalgia are people who are military, or there's a lot of high incidence of road traffic accidents that people have had a little bit of trauma, physical and PTSD from accidents.
Yeah.
And then women, it's that plus it's childhood sexual trauma plus. And it's getting they're getting that awareness out of, pain, mental health and sleep issues all combined with each other. And what we are is a emergency toolkit to give you anxiety relief on demand.
So this actually works for anxiety and sleep issues as well?
So anxiety, we've got a clinical trial coming up. Basically, that we will go for an FDA indication once we've got clinical data for it.
Yep.
Stress relief is what we're currently allowed to market for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So stress relief and sleep improvement.
Great.
And there are FDA regulators. So fibromyalgia will be our first FDA indication. Neuropathic pain is likely to be our second, and then anxiety and PTSD will be the trials that we're doing. But if anybody wants stress relief now, they can go onto the website.
How do we find it? What is it called?
So www.sana.io.
Okay.
And anybody listening to this, if they want to use the code FAM30, so family 30, FAM30, that'll get them a 30% discount.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll put the link in the show notes too.
Super.
Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for, choosing to come back and to commit to creating something that's, helping and serving so many people. I feel grateful for you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.